Welcome to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins. Let's Get Into It is a safe space to have real conversations that are meant to uplift, encourage, and let you know you are not the only one dealing with life. Each episode of Let's Get Into It is designed to provide illuminating and thought-provoking information on a variety of topics. In fact, no topic is off limit. If you would like to see a topic discussed, please feel free to make a recommendation. My special guest and I will have a great time discussing topics that the mainstream media wouldn't dare discuss. We will bring these conversations to you with an open mind, respectfully, from different perspectives, and most importantly, with love. Thank you for joining me and my special guest. Now, let's get into it. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins, and I am once again excited about today's show. It is going to be a powerful show, not only for men, but for the women too. So you can get some insight into what a man's mind is like. Because, of course, women think very differently than men. And my guest today bared his soul and his book, Audacity, fueled by invincible ignorance to win. I love that phrase, invincible ignorance to win. And so, yes, today is going to be a very interesting conversation. And I'm so excited about the conversation that I'm just going to go ahead and bring my guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sherelle. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. And I'm so excited to have you on the show because you have a story to tell. And I want to make sure that people go and purchase this book. And at the end of the show, Eddie, I'm going to ask you to let our audience know how they can buy this book. Now, I will start out saying that my husband, many of you all have seen on the show, he does not read books. He reads a lot and he's very, very, very intelligent, but he does not read books. He read this book before I even had a chance to read it. And he has recommended that my son read this book. So that's how powerful this book is. You can get so much from it. Your kids can get stuff from it, especially if you have teenagers or young adults, particularly men. So that they can see somebody else's journey and how you overcome obstacles that life will throw your way. And so, Eddie, we just gonna jump right into these questions I have for you. So the first question is, throughout this book, you really showed your vulnerabilities. And that was very eye-opening for me and also very interesting because most men don't want to show that they can be vulnerable. And so can you tell us why you felt it was so important to show all of the vulnerabilities that you show throughout your book?
That's a lot to unpack, but I think for me, and the only way to be authentic is to be vulnerable. Right. And it's very difficult to be naked to the world. But I have been exposed to the world by the federal government. I have been exposed to the world by people that were not too happy for the person that I was or the things that I accomplished. So when you make a mistake, it blows up. So I wanted to be vulnerable because I wanted to take the opportunity to have my voice, to share my story, my testimony, my pain, my purpose in the book. Not only that, writing is healing. Right? So, you're able to heal when you do a lot of writing and journaling, and it just provided that for me. So, so if someone else going to make me vulnerable by the poor choices I made, let me take the pen this time. Let me, write my story so I can be heard from my point of view, my perspective, and what I felt during that time.
Okay, and throughout the book, you talked a lot about your son.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a blended family and had an amazing example of what co-parenting should look like. Why is it important to you to have a healthy relationship or a healthy co-parenting relationship?
Well, it's a difference between co-parenting and sharing a child. You know what I'm saying? So Donovan's mom, Debbie, did an awesome job with assisting me in raising our son. Not only that, she was, the key to the cog while I was away. Without her, I wouldn't be here. Because my son was everything to me,
Hmm.
and it was very difficult being away from him during that time. And so she provided a lot of support and keeping us in tune and keeping him in the same energy and the same consistency that we both did for him, whether during the time we were still together and when we separated. And that was important. It's funny you say that because a lot of people didn't know we weren't together because we did everything together still. We wanted to make, my point was to make it as easy for him and as natural for him as a child as possible because, it's important. It's important. And I tell guys all the time, like, look, dude, when you uproot your family, you got to take everything that comes along with it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I got beat all upside the head many, many, many times because that's what you're supposed to. Not saying it's all right, but you're supposed to sponge some of that up because you're the problem. I was the problem. So, yeah.
That is worth recognizing, right? Because we oftentimes, just as human, both men and women, we oftentimes punt the responsibility,
Yeah.
and not we're not able to acknowledge our role in a situation.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for even acknowledging that you were part of the problem. And so, growing up, for me, um, my parents, I have, as far as I'm concerned, I have five parents, right? And
Okay.
so they always made sure that we all grew up together, and one parent couldn't come to the house and say, "Oh, I'm just taking my kids," right?
Mm.
My mother would be like, "No, you taking all the kids."
Right.
And
Right.
so and when I look back on it, I now can clearly understand and appreciate
Yeah.
the co-parenting that they did, or the sharing of the children that they did, and
Yeah.
still do to this day. Um, in the book, you talked about engaging in sex at an early age.
Yeah.
In what ways did it make you more mature?
You said you were gonna ask some questions. So, well, when you're exposed to some things early on, you got to figure out how to navigate through that. And it's funny, my mother read the book. She was the first reader I had, and I gave her the book, and I wasn't expecting her to sit there and read it, and she started reading, and it's a page turner, and she got to that page, and all I heard was say, "What? Where was I? Who was it? Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Mom, this is what the book is about." So it kind of made me feel good because if my mother can react that way, then other mothers are going to react that way. And that's what I wanted. So you have to learn early to navigate through some things. You got to learn how to present. I used to deal with some older girls at a young age. And so you got to present. You have to, I used to watch the older guys around the neighborhood. I said, okay, this what you do. So that's what you do. And so I learned early that I had I could talk to the females a little bit. I didn't know what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. But I could talk to the females. Well, other guys were a little shy and a little reserved from that. So yeah. So that different experiences mold you in certain ways. So yeah, some
Yeah.
not the best molds, but yeah.
Okay. And so I often, well, not anymore since I'm retired, but when I was in the workplace, people would often say to me that I was arrogant
Mm-hmm.
because I was confident.
Mm-hmm.
And so, why do you think people perceive confidence as arrogance?
Wow, I had those shoes on most of my life, and so I see it in so many different ways. There's a thin line between confidence and arrogance. Um, I remember you at Virginia State, and I saw a strong girl at that time, strong woman,
Right.
right? I saw your strength, the way you move and carry yourself. So if you're not secure with yourself, you're gonna see somebody as arrogant. I
Mm.
never saw people as arrogant because
Yeah, me either.
if I didn't know you, how could I say that? But that's how I was viewed in many ways, and I'll tell you, I was arrogant, right? But I was never arrogant outwardly. I didn't demean people. I didn't look down on people. I was always a team guy. I was always a captain in the sporting events that I played in on a team. So, but inwardly, I was. I learned that as I got older.
Mm.
That was part of my demise.
Hmm.
But confidence that comes with growth. That comes with who you are. So, a lot of that is innate, Sherelle. A lot of that is based on what you said about your parents and how they raised you, and the
Hmm.
results of who you are today. My mother and my father instilled a lot of confidence in me, and because I didn't have all the fly gear, I didn't have the tennis shoes. We I didn't come up like that. I
Right.
had what I needed. Right,
Right.
I had a home, I had food, I had some love, I had some discipline,
Come
and
on now.
and I had some, and we had issues to deal with, right?
Right.
So when you're given that and you see that, like I saw that in my father was a man's man, right? The people in the neighborhood, if you'll ever see me put up a picture of my pop on Facebook, all the people from around the way, like that's Mr. Good, and that's who he was. I saw that, white caddy, cool, always, that guy. So I'm like, man, I need to move in that aura. And Sherelle, I tell you that I was blessed to be able to see a man in my life, right?
Hmm.
And so that helped me and that gave me confidence. So I can't take that credit for myself. But as you start to win in life, and the way you win, sometimes that expectation to win, that's when that arrogance seeps in.
Mm.
You got to be able to have that balance. And so when you're young, you really don't.
Yeah. I learned a long time ago that people who view confidence as arrogance
Yeah,
are people who are insecure with themselves.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I just let it roll off my back. But
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the things that resonated with me in your book.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about winning. So
Mm-hmm.
let me ask you this. Um, your book says, fueled by invincible ignorance to win.
Yeah.
Where did that winning spirit come from for you, that you just had to win at all costs?
Sure, I can go back to elementary school, right? It seemed like I was an athlete. I was athletic. I could run, shoot, do all those things in all this, I played all sports. And it seemed like I was always one of the guys that was looked upon to be the guy.
Mm,
And I can go back to fifth grade. We had this thing called a presidential award,
okay.
and at my elementary school, I lost it in fifth grade to a girl. I'm not gonna say her name because she's on Facebook, and she teases me to this day. Sherelle, I walked out that school that day and cried all the way. I was sick. I'm 10 years old, and at 10 years old, Sherelle, I had won a championship in football, Little League, been successful in basketball at 10, basketball, MVPs. And so I'm a win. And
Mm,
I'll never forget that feeling of losing. And some of that invincible ignorance came in as I began to grow and mature because I was willing to do anything to win,
mm,
anything to be the best or be considered one of the best. Um, there's a guy, older guy, and I was just talking to him on the phone the other day. He's from my neighborhood, and he was a very good running back in Little League and high school, right? And he was like 4 years older than me. And my father used to give him so much praise, and I hated it because I
mm,
used to have 3 or 4 touchdowns, and all he talked about was this guy. And I hated him, but I loved him. He never knew, but I hated him. And it fueled me so much. every time I watched him play, I said, I'm gonna score more touchdowns than him. I'm gonna score, I'm gonna do something better than him. So that came on an early age, and as I got older, it gets worse. You start to win more. I did a lot of things to separate myself from the average, educationally, professionally. I was promoted very fast and often in my career, and I didn't always do things the right way, Sherelle, and I was still promoted. So, like, okay, so I can do what I want to do, and I can look at you and see what you're not able to do. Oh, I can do that. I'm gonna make sure I show you I can do it and do it better than you. See, that just ridiculous. When I think about it now, I want to kick myself in the butt because just ignorant.
Well, that's an interesting perspective because when I look back over my life, a label that was attached to me that I initially didn't acknowledge, but I do now, is overachiever.
Yes.
And so I can relate to what you're saying. I just didn't, necessarily think it was a win situation. For me, it was just overachieving and being able to accomplish a lot of things in life very quickly. And so I can relate to that.
Yeah.
You talked about in your book moving on emotions.
Yeah.
Why is that not a good idea?
Wow. There's no thought. You're not being analytical. You're not asking questions or asking for opinions of people that you respect. It's just an overt reaction, and that never works. And I made some of those decisions. I was never a openly emotional person, but on the inside, I was. I realized that when I went through my situation, my setback. I'm like, man, there are a lot of things that you got to change in your life, bro, because it has led you to this place of self-destruction. And so yeah, I tell my clients that I work with all the time, man, that's the worst place to be, is in your feelings. That's the worst place to be. You can't do nothing. You can't make a good decision. You can't receive any information. And that I made some of those choices. So I wanted to share that in the book so people can understand, because men, we think that, when we make a decision, I'm making a decision. Like, bro, you're not making a decision. Your feelings are. Your feelings making a decision, man. You're not thinking about nothing. So, yeah, definitely.
So in the comments, Jennifer said it is paralyzing when you make decisions based on emotions.
Crippling, Jennifer. Crippling. Because when you make an emotional decision, oftentimes it's for something that's temporary, but your decision is making it for life.
Oh, that's good.
Right? For life. And I did that, and it is so disappointing for me sometimes. And I've had to learn to live with some regrets, Sherelle, to the point it would just bring me to tears, because I used to say I should be so far ahead of where I am because I was sharp, right? I was really sharp, but I really wasn't. I really wasn't sharp in the ways that I should have been. But I'll tell you this, I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Come on now.
And I had to accept that. Like, I'm a winner now, but I had to accept that. I got guys that I trained and promoted and were supervising and managing. They're retired now, or they're wardens of prisons now, and they wouldn't even come on the compound when I was working back then. And so I had to say, you got to be the biggest fool, and I had to get past that because, again, emotions. I had to get past that because God was not going to allow me to heal. He wasn't going to give me the things that He had in store for me. Had I not, I had to stop speaking that negative energy. And I had to say, man, you know what? I'm not making the money I was making before. I don't have the things that I used to have before, but I got a whole lot, Sherelle. And what I have is, I'm a better person. I'm a better father. I'm a better friend. I've always loved people, but I want to see everybody win without me winning.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Uh-huh.
I don't have an agenda. We talked about that offline before we cranked up, and it's just because if you win, I win. If I had a conversation with you, you won, I won.
Absolutely.
That's that spirit, that spirituality.
And we in the Black community particularly
Yeah.
have to do better at that,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
We have to be able to support each other,
Yeah.
and it's okay if it's somebody else's turn to win.
That's right.
It doesn't always have to be your turn, and it's okay if you support them in their winning season.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I think that's just one aspect that we need to get really good at in our community.
Yeah. Unity. See, we've been brainwashed
Yes.
so long that we are afraid to be a union. If I let Sherelle win, I push her. She's not gonna come back and get me.
That's right.
So I'm not gonna help her win. Matter of fact, I'm gonna help her lose.
Absolutely. I'm gonna do everything to make sure she loses.
I've dealt with that all my life.
Yeah.
All life.
So let's talk about snitching. I laughed at that part of the book because it made me start thinking about, when did snitching become a bad thing, right?
Right.
And so I had to reflect back on when I was a child and growing up with my sisters, particularly my older sisters and my cousins who were all older than me. We all hung out tough together, right? And so my mother always knew that if something went down, she would come to me and say, I'm going to ask you one time. And you can decide whether or not you want the discipline because you lying to me, or whoever did it get the discipline.
Mama should have done you like that.
She did it. That's what I did each and every time. I bet. Snitched each and every time. And so, I had to get a chuckle out of that because I was like, well, when did snitching become a bad thing?
Right.
And so let me ask you this. What is snitching now?
Well, the environments that I come from, that's just not something you do. There's no fertile ground with the people you love or the people you choose to do business with, or whatever the case may be. We've gotten away from that as a people. Times have changed because it's every man for himself, God for us all, or God or just dismiss God. And so I didn't come up that way. Being the oldest in my family, my little brother, I always protected him. So, it wasn't about telling. I just had to protect him. So that's just how I was wired. But in the book, I had an opportunity to save myself and crush other people. And I mean, really, a lot of people, because I was used in many ways as the GOAT of this issue that was going on in that prison. And a lot of it wasn't true. Some of it was. But there was no way that I could look at myself in the mirror and see someone else suffer the way I'm suffering, the way my son is suffering, my mother is suffering, just to save myself. And I chose to fight instead. So, I come up Washington, D.C., Maryland, PG County area. We used to go to go-go. So we learned early on that when you walk in, you don't even make eye contact with dudes unless you're trying to be a part of what they got going on, or you might have to see them, right? And some dudes you just don't want to see. You already know what they're about, right? So you don't even look that way. You just keep going. Nowadays, social media, we got the camera, we looking. Nobody has any codes or principles about how they're doing things, and so the federal government came at me oftentimes to, hey, I know you know what's going on. I know this and I know that. And they like, I know your history, Mr. Good. I put it in the book. We know you're not going. Yeah. So why are you talking to me then? So the arrogance, because I was angry, I was hurt, and they was embarrassed. They were embarrassing me by continually having me come up there to talk to them about certain situations. Why you asking me if you already know who I am, right? So that part kind of hurt me. Not that I didn't tell, but how I carried it, right? It drove them to kill me, and they did. They did.
Yeah, I tell my friends, don't do nothing around me because I'm telling you all they got to do is say what happened. Yeah. They don't even have to say with who. I'm telling it all. So I'm not the one you're going to be doing stuff around. Because I'm not going to participate in it. So it's not like I'm, telling on you to save myself. I'm telling on you because they asked me a question. So
you gotta know you gotta know who you are.
Oh, absolutely.
You gotta know who you're dealing with, right? And so I've been blessed to be connected with some good men, some solid men, and you can't hold a man down forever. You can't keep him incarcerated ever. And I always wanted to be able to walk back around my men the way I've always been viewed and respected by them. That was important to me. So
understood.
Yeah.
I'm different.
Well, you're not going to be involved in none of that, so it don't even matter.
I'm not. But my sons and his friends, they call me a snitch because I will tell it. I'll be calling the mamas up like, your son got your car.
Yeah. Hey, we need some of that, though. We need some of that.
And then I take a picture of the car and send it to them so they know I'm
real. Stop. That's funny.
So you mentioned in the book that you had several complaints that were unfounded regarding excessive use of force.
Yeah.
And so how did those unfounded complaints impact your reputation?
Well, you have to understand corrections in the 90s and early 2000s. It was barbaric. I worked in Supermax prisons. I opened up as a captain at one of the first prisons in the state of Virginia that had guns on the inside. So we had some real convicts to deal with every day. And not to say that they were bad people,
right?
But they did time.
And they did bad things.
The way they're supposed to do, the way they're gonna do time. And you understand that. So it wasn't you didn't have mace and sticks and all that. It was hand-to-hand combat. So for me, that invincible ignorance to win again, I was one early on that when I walked in a building, I'm gonna be the guy. Like, you gonna respect me, and I'm gonna respect you. And everybody's not used to that. So I got to make you respect me. And I wasn't afraid of that. I was never afraid. I had a father that dealt with me early on in life. So, another man was nothing. I'm like, man, that's all you got? I've been dealing with this cat since and I needed that, right?
Right.
But I was well respected in my career. I did things that I was able to do things that a lot of my peers weren't able to do. And that is deal with men that were dangerous and it would do something. I've been stabbed in a riot at a prison. I've dealt with hostage situations. I wasn't in hostage. Another one of my buddies were. I did a couple of riots. I mean, a lot. And so for me, it was as crazy as it sounds. It was thrilling to me. It was like I was back on the football field. It's third and short. They coming my way. I got to make the play. When I think about it now, I think you had to be the craziest fool. Running up in cells, guys with knives, but I got people watching. I'm going to be that guy. And so, that count is right. I just, I had a lot of influence. And so a lot of the complaints were, changed by the time it got to the situation where you had to do the talking and all that kind of stuff. And so, again, a lot of power, in the wrong way, or
Mm.
with the right intentions.
Mhm.
I never, ever deliberately or intentionally harmed anyone.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna take care of my team. You can't disrespect my team. When we ask you to do something, you're gonna do it. And if I have to get called out of my office, they've already exhausted that, so I'm not doing no talking. We're gonna deal with you. And so a lot of that is comes along with it. But if you're from the outside looking and you read that blanket statement, you're like, oh my God, he can't. And so they put that out there because I was taking my case to trial. So they
Mhm.
put that out there to let you know this is what this guy is. He's so heinous, and that wasn't the case. There are guys that I deal with now that I dealt with in the prison system for years, and we're good friends today because
Mhm.
I took care of them. They were safe. They were able to do their time. They were able to do the things they needed to do. It's just if I tell you to move, move. If I tell you to stop, stop. That's it.
Mhm.
That's it.
When I read that part in the book, it made me stop and reflect on all of the excessive use of force that we see today with the different police departments
Yeah,
across the country.
yeah,
And so that's what triggered me to want to
yeah.
ask you about that.
Oh yeah,
And you said something very powerful. You said, power, right? Authority.
yeah,
And so, as we navigate our lives and we have these interactions with law enforcement,
yeah,
it's important for us to remember that they have the power and they have the authority. And sometimes you're gonna run across somebody that's just out of control, right?
absolutely.
That's gonna happen.
Yeah,
But I think hopefully, for the most part, if you just play it cool and just uh, try to be civil and respectful.
yeah.
Hopefully, you won't have any incidents. But sometimes it's just the luck of the draw on who pulls you over or who you come in contact with.
It is. I was a police officer for 3 years, Sherelle, and in 3 years, I probably pulled my weapon out 4 times, and
Mm,
it was the amount of force that had to be used. Nothing because these officers are afraid of black men.
mm-hmm,
They are afraid of men.
mm-hmm.
They have not been trained on how to properly diffuse situations. Had I had those amount of excessive use of force and it was real, they would have killed me in there.
Mm-hmm.
See, in the prison, the inmates are in charge.
Right.
They are in charge. Don't get it twisted now. They just choose because they want to go home. They want to stay out in population. So you can't act that way, especially back then in the 90s. The average inmate back then was in their 30s and 40s. Now there are kids in there. So
Yeah.
it's different. So no, it wasn't like that at all. I frown on it because nobody uses the verbal skills that you have to deal with men. Nobody takes the time to listen to people. And when you come on a scene, Sherelle, you're coming to diffuse a problem, not to start one.
Right.
That's not what it is. You don't get any respect like that. So yeah, I understand. And I'm that's a good question you asked. I'm glad you asked that.
Also, in that same light, you just mentioned something about being a former correctional officer and a former police officer, and many of us don't have that experience, right? And so all we know is what we see on TV or what we read in books. And so talk to us about what your mindset was when you learned that you were going to have to do a year in jail having that type of background.
Yeah, well, correction, a year in prison. It's a different
I'm sorry.
prison.
I'm sorry. You're right. A year in prison,
Big,
because jail
big
is
difference.
prison.
Big difference. Big difference. Um, um, people think that going to prison and doing time is the most difficult time. Uh,
Mm,
it's not. The months leading up to that is. The years after that are, because that's when you have to recover from all the damage that you've done.
mm-hmm,
And so for me, the only thing that I was concerned with was running my time up. because I wasn't going for nothing, and for the first any little incident, I would have to deal with it, and so that was my fear, being in a situation where I gotta take a stance on something, and I'm gonna take a stance, and I'm gonna let everybody know that I'm with it, I'm about it, and it sounds crazy, but when you're in the trenches, you gotta have a trenches mentality, and that's what I was already there, but it was devastating to lose. Number one, to say, okay, I'm going to lay down. I'm going to accept the culpability of my part. Because I was taking it to trial, Sherelle, but when I looked, my lawyer was talking to me and he was like, Ed, yeah, you got a chance to win. I said, but if you lose, they're going to give it all to you. And so it's either take my responsibility, save my butt, and not try to save my face. It's a difference, right?
Come on now.
And so that was hard for me to do because now I got to admit, and nobody knows that side of me, right? Now I got to expose all this. Not only that, I had to make a decision, and the decision was easy for me because I couldn't take the chance of being away from Donovan that long. I just couldn't do that. And as tough as it was, it was the cut and try. Okay, I'm gonna take this plea. You win. It broke my heart to have to tell those people that y'all got me, right? And I hated that. But my son, you talking about being away from 5 or 6 years, you got to be out your mind. There's no way. Like that little year I did, and I say little year because I know guys that did 30, 40 years.
Right.
I don't care if you do a week. It's time. It's time.
Hey, right? 12 seconds will take me all the way out.
Time is time. And so that's for me, having worked in the environment for 17 years and being in that space, I was dealt with wrongly often. I was used as a spectacle many times. I did 4.5, almost 5 months in the hole, which is called the SHU, Special Housing Unit, under investigation for something I didn't do, just to prove a point to me. And I frown on it, but I said, you know what? I did this. I put myself here. This is what comes up office. So when I tell people all the time, be careful when you say, I'm going to be okay with this one mistake. And the reason I say it is because you just looking at it from this angle, but it's a snowball of things that you're going to have to deal with, brother, that you can't even imagine that's coming, right? That came my way. And so the months leading up to going in was torture. Man, it was very difficult. The years to recover afterwards was very difficult because it took me like 7 years to get back to a place where I could look in the mirror and be okay with what I saw. And for me, I always loved me, right? So I always loved me, and people helped me feel that way about myself. But to look at yourself in the mirror and you stink, you're a convicted felon, you dirty, you sorry, you empty.
Okay, so but prior to that moment, right?
Yeah.
You talked about having to tell, your parents because you knew that this was going to be blasted on the news.
Yeah.
And so how did you navigate that part of life with it being all over the news? People know you locally. And, I'm just trying to get a visual of like, what was your life like during that time?
I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. When it hit the news, I had another job. I was working 2 jobs after I left. I was on investigation, and in the time before I resigned, and I was on my way to work, and I came into work, and my supervisor, I was a supervisor at another residential center for children. And she came to the door and she said, Ed, you know, it's all over the news. People in the building are watching it. And I couldn't breathe. I'm like, wow, man, it's happening. Right? It's here. It's here. And all that invincible ignorance went out the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I felt like this big, right? And well, that small. and, and so I went back to my car, and I was just in, it was a fog for me. I just couldn't believe this was happening. Sherelle, up until the time when I got indicted, my mindset was, I'm gonna beat this case and I'm going back in there and show them who I am. I'm talking about crazy. I was a fool. My mindset was, man, I don't see none of this. I'm going to win. I'm going back into work. I'm gonna show them who I am. And so God is listening to all this. And he's saying, son, I'm gonna have to damn near kill you to get yourself together. And so this is the process that he started for me. And so be careful what you pray for, how you pray, what you ask for, because we think it's going to happen the way we want it to happen. God had a different plan for me. It's all in that book. So that was the mindset I was in, and I set my car, and Marvin Sapp's album had just came out. And when I tell you every song, I'm like, Marvin, turn it, turn it off. I mean, it was touching, my testimony, every track on there, he was talking to me. And it was just like, as I look back on it, I'm like, this was all by design. Like, and so I just look back and say, God, like, you ease up a little bit. Can you do something? Like, nah. You remember this person here? Remember this break I gave you? Remember these blessings I gave you that you just continue to do what you want to do? Now you're on my time now. And so I tell people all the time, like, be careful, because when you're on God's time, you might want him to kill you.
Absolutely.
You might want him to kill you, yeah.
And I will tell you, reading that part of the book brought a scripture to my mind. You were talking about your struggles with finding employment after you were released, and how you had to follow God's plan.
Yep.
And it made me think of a scripture that says, do you trust me to orchestrate your life events as I choose? Or are you still trying to make things go according to your will? If you keep trying to carry out your intentions while I am leading you in another direction, you defy your desires.
Amen.
And so that just made me, and that's a scripture that I had on repeat at a point in my life when my life was experiencing life right? And so I had it on repeat, and that's just, in part, of course, but it really helped me get through and be able to take a deep breath and just throw my hands up and say, okay, God, whatever you got, I'm here for it. I know, you walked me down this path for a particular reason.
Right.
Because you're trying to get me away from what I was doing so that I can get to what you need me to do. And that's exactly what happened. And so when I read that part about, you talking about struggling with getting employment because you were a felon, it just kind of made me think about that scripture.
Yeah. Surrendering is a chapter in the book called Self-Surrender. And very difficult for a person like me to do. And I had to get out the way. And I had to just ride. And at first, I can't, I was aggressive and looking for jobs and working, because I had the education, I had the experience. I didn't have a barrier crime, so I could work anywhere. And I'm keep being told no. And I'm gonna tell you something, Sherelle, about surrendering. there was one particular job I talked about in the book that I had, and I'm like, man, I made it. I got it. Knocked out the interview. They had like 15 questions. I probably answered the first 10 and the first 2, right? I felt good about it. And you talk about God taking control. Moving along, I didn't get the job. Was devastated because when you're told you're my guy, top candidate, boom, boom, boom. Regional director comes back in and said, I can't hire him. I don't trust him. You don't trust me. This job is 15,000 less beneath the experience, education that I have. You told me you don't trust me. I'm bringing an impact to your team, but that same job that I wanted was abolished when COVID hit. You see how God worked?
Oh, absolutely. Look at that. Won't he do it?
Now, and yes. And so, but the job that I was working part-time is now the job that I have full-time, but as the program supervisor. So this door he opened up for me, right? And I didn't want to be here at the other place where I was. I didn't want to be at that job because I didn't. No, this not what I do. Okay, well, it is what you do. You just need to embrace it. So he closed that door, and I said, "Wow, God, thank you so much for taking your foot and sticking it up my butt so far that I can't do nothing, right? And then put that thorn in my side and turn it every time." And so, because that job, they abolished it. COVID came, and those people were let go. And quite a few other jobs that I tried to get were the same way. So he had his hand on it all the time. That's something Marvin Sapp song. He had his hands on it.
Yes. Ethel said knocked down, but was never knocked out. Right. I like that. Thank you for that, Ethel. I'm putting that in my repertoire of sayings. Knocked down, but was never knocked out.
Yeah.
I like that. So you were, and still are, very popular with the Virginia State family.
Thank you.
Did you ever have any concerns about reintegrating with your college peers once you were released?
I did. And I'll tell you, Sherelle, to be perfectly honest with you, there were quite a few people that had a lot of bad things to say. I'll never say their names.
Right. We don't want names.
But no, I'm not. There's no sense in that.
Right.
But I see them. I know them. And some of that invincible ignorance still lived in me. And that energy that they gave me pushed me to be successful again. It pushed me to show up again. It pushed me. And my page used to be full of my son. Pictures, the games. I mean, I took everything. And he hated it because he's not, he doesn't want no pictures, none of that. I said, boy, I'm going to take every picture that I can. Every one. Because his pictures saved my life in prison. I was able to look at him and it gave me life. Look at his pictures. And so that was my way to share my testimony. Like, look at what God is continuing to do in my life. My son is thriving. It wasn't about me.
Right.
My son is thriving. We together every day. I'm training him. He's working. He's successful. He's a all-state, all-thing athlete in track football. And I'm like, this is the testimony.
Come on.
These are the results when you let God work through you and get out of the way and stay committed and devoted. And so, we're quite a few that, and I was angry, right, at that time. And I didn't understand. But what I used to tell my son, I said, be careful about all those that say they love you and praising you. And because
they will turn their back at the minute something goes south.
When you make the first mistake, they're going to be chopping your head off your shoulders. Absolutely. So don't give people the paintbrush to paint the portrait of you. You paint your portrait. And so I didn't do that. I failed at that. So I had to take that. And as I began to get my life back in order, Sherelle, I didn't blame them anymore. I blame myself because I gave them the keys.
Mm-hmm.
Gave them the keys. So yeah, but not many, right? But one was too much for me. I'm like, what? You said what?
Right.
You ain't afraid to say that about me, bro? Like, so, but no, but I'll tell you, the love from our alumni is brought me to tears on many occasions.
Mm-hmm.
When I first put my story on Facebook in 2016 or 17, the story, it wasn't my story, it was just, I was just sharing, like, here, and the love I got, the phone calls that I got that day pushed me to write the book. There's some people that call and say, Eddie, why you do that? You got me crying on the way to work. I'm sick of you. Why, and I'm like, what? I'm like, man, I didn't realize it. So I appreciate our community. I appreciate Virginia State University. I appreciate the people that didn't spit venom on me. I appreciate those that did.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was, I was hesitant at the time because when I first went to homecoming, the looks that I got was like, oh, hey, man, how you doing? It was different. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, all right, I understand. So, yeah.
Well, many people who did not attend Virginia State have said to me, and I know this just from personal experience, but we have a very special alumni at Virginia State.
Mm-hmm.
And people say to me, I don't connect with people that I went to college with anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or, we don't hang out like y'all do. Every time I turn around, Sherelle, you posting something on social media, you hanging out with your Virginia State family. I'm like, because we love each other. I'm just like, that's what we do. And I can really appreciate the connections that we have. And even if we don't know each other personally, we know who each other is, and we know to look out for one another. And so I tell people, I said, prior to the CIAA moving to Baltimore, I would go down to Charlotte, and I was like, I never once had a care in the world, because I knew there would be different guys coming up to me who went to Virginia State saying, you good, sis? You need anything? And I knew they would look out for me, even though my husband wasn't there. And so what we have as a bond at from Virginia State is very, very special to me. And I really, really appreciate it. And I think most of us understand that there are some of us who are going to make bad decisions. And that's not our place to judge or to shun the person, but to be prepared to embrace the person back into our circle when they are ready.
Yes.
And so I saw that from afar happening with you.
Yeah, definitely. Two parts to that. My football brothers, who I love dearly, we are tight. And many of us have gone through some things. That those years of playing together, living in Langston, which was like the ghetto back then, it was like the Marriott to us,
right?
Because it was ours and nobody else. So my brothers, those years I played were amazing to me. Our alumnus, our alumni, have been awesome, Sherelle. To me personally. And many people I didn't have relationships with at Virginia State. I'm on your podcast right now, your platform. I didn't know you personally at Virginia State University. Right. And look at where we are. I think that's amazing. I think that's what it's about. And it's funny because I think the classes, I came in '86, but the classes from like '82.
Oh, let me find out you were youngin'.
Yeah. Yeah, I was. I came in '86, a class from '82 to like 86, 87, 88 maybe. We still get together.
Absolutely.
There aren't any other classes that do that at Virginia State. And I'm not just saying it because I'm telling you, I've had guys that because I played with both some older guys I came in with in my freshman year, and I was the older guy for younger guys that came in in 89, 90, I played with them. They don't get together. They hang with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had our football tent. And so it's just a testament that we came in at a time that was challenging. We didn't have much, but we had each other.
That's right.
And that's what it was about.
Wow, look at the time. Time has really gone by quickly.
Wow.
And this has been a great conversation, but I must ask you two last questions. One is, you mentioned tapping into your purpose and moving forward, or moving towards it.
Yep.
Many people don't know what their purpose is. Do you have any strategies you can share that will help people connect with and recognize what their purpose is?
I think one key piece is to, where you find peace in what you're doing, that's a part of your purpose. Where you're finding struggle in every day to get up and go to work or to get up and do certain things, that may not be your purpose. And for, I always, I'm 17 years in corrections. I'm gonna retire. This is what I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be a warden. I'm gonna close out my career like that. God had different plans for me, and so I think you got to be connected to your spirituality, Sherelle. You got to be grounded in your higher power, which I always was. I just had my own higher power that I was moving with. I'm God, right? And it's funny. I laugh, but I'm telling you, it's so sad. But that's where I was. And so, but what makes you happy? What brings you peace? What allows you to grow? That's what I say pay attention to.
Okay. And I also will add to that, your purpose is that thing that comes the easiest to you.
Yes. And it just happens.
It just happens. Yes. So last question. Your mom said to you, I see you pouring into everyone else, but who's pouring into you?
Yeah.
That resonates with me a lot. Now that you're on the other side of the path that you once lived, I'll ask you the same question. Who's pouring into you now? Because God, He does that every day.
Absolutely. That's a good question. I allow myself to be vulnerable around people, good people. You can't always be the leader in everything.
A good leader knows how to follow.
Yeah, you got to know how to follow. And so for many years I led, right? And so I had nobody to check me. I checked everybody else. I had nobody to check me. Well, I'll correct that. I had some people to check. I just didn't listen to them.
Right.
And so I alienated a lot of those persons. So, of course, just sure. I mean, that's a tough question, but it's a good question. I tell you, just being a good person, right, opens the doors of opportunities to be led, right, to be poured into, listening, and slowing down and moving in the good space, just being a good person, being honest with yourself and the people you're around. That's important. My mother, she asked me that. I can remember the day she asked me, and I said to myself, Mom, no, you out here messing up. When I left her, my mother is a very wise person. Everybody's mother's wise, of course. My mother and I, we're close.
Not everybody's mother.
Well, yeah. That's true. But we're very close. And I recall leaving her and saying to myself, Mom knows something about you. She knows. And I still didn't press pause. So, just being a good person, Sherelle. I don't want no smoke. I've had enough to last me and you for the rest of our life. I've been
Well, you
whooped.
taking my smoke because I don't want none.
I've been whooped
I'm gonna
enough.
have to snitch.
Yeah, I've been whooped enough. I got the scars to show it, and they're not scars of honor, right?
Right.
It's scars of being downsized and humbled, and I don't take that lightly. Not a perfect person. I'm flawed, but I
We
try to measure up as much as I can. Um, um, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to close with a quote from your book.
Okay.
Life shows up when we are at peace. That is nothing but the truth. So thank you so very much for spending this hour with me. And as we wrap, I just want to say that the Dear Sister chapter was very powerful. And I think if some women read it, it will change their lives.
Yeah. I caught some flack from that. I caught some flack from the guys for that.
Now, I love that chapter. So,
Yeah.
can you tell everybody how they can purchase Audacity, fueled by Invincible Ignorance to Win? Transform your life with courage, persistence, and forgiveness.
Yes. CEO Publications is my who provided this support for me, my team. The website is iamedgood.com. And you go on the website, it has a YouTube channel there, it has different other settings you can look at and attach you to, take you to the place where you can get the publications and order the book. And it's there.
This is a very, very good book, and I highly recommend it. Once again, please support Eddie Good and purchase this book. You will not be disappointed. It is a page turner. I read this book in one day. And so that's how it captivated my attention. Again, my husband read this book. He doesn't read books. And now my son's turn, since now I have finished the show, I am going to pass it on to my son to read. So again, thank you, Eddie, so very much. I really enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you sharing your journey with us and, giving us some insight into what your journey was really like and really letting us know that the test that's in your testimony was passed.
Yes, thank you so much. It's purpose in the pain.
Yes, purpose in the pain.
This is the first interview I've had. I didn't cry, so thank you.
Good. I saw you. I wasn't going to call you out.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Thank you so much, Terrell.
I hope you all enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. But I want to get into my what the hell segment. And so, again, I am constantly asking myself, what the hell? So today, I had called in a prescription. And I've been taking this medication, and I've been taking this medication for a while, and I have to get the prescription filled once a month. I've been paying $24.99 for this prescription every month. Well, today, lo and behold, when they sent me a text message saying that my prescription was ready, I typically don't pay attention to those text messages, but God led me to pay attention today. I had sent my son to go get the prescription, and when I read the text message, I had to call him and say, wait a minute, hold on. I'll let you know whether you will pick it up. The cost that was due was $1,162 for some medicine. And I said, what the hell? What are we doing in America? Now, thank goodness I have really good health insurance, and they were able to, figure out whatever they did wrong to bring it back down to $24.99. But it made me stop and think about people who do not have health insurance. What the hell is our government doing, allowing these big farm companies to charge the American citizens that kind of money for medicine that they need? This is not something that's elective. This is something that people need to survive. They are poisoning us with the food. They are poisoning us with the water that they provide for us. And now they are sucking the American people dry for the medicine that they need after they eat this poisonous food. after they drink the poisonous water. So what the hell are we going to do as American citizens to fight back? We have to fight for not only ourselves, but for people who cannot afford $1,162 a month for 30-day supply worth of medicine. Just what the hell is going on in America? I'm so over it. We have to do better, and we have to show our politicians we mean business. So on November 5th, if you do not vote before then in early voting, please do not stay home and sit on the couch. Let's make our voices heard, and let's end the question of asking ourselves, what the hell? Thank you all for joining us today. It was a great show. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to you all joining me for my next show in 2 weeks from today at 6:30, and I have another special guest lined up. So thank you all. Have a great night. Thank you for joining and participating in Let's Get Into It. I want to thank my special guest for being brave enough to get into it. Without you, these conversations cannot happen. Remember, different viewpoints, respect, and love are the foundations of Let's Get Into It. If there's a topic you think I should discuss, drop me a recommendation. If you're interested in being my special guest, let me know, because we can and will get into it. Have a great day on purpose, and I look forward to your continued engagement and support as we get into it.